Hello, welcome to our channel Learn to Score. In this video, we are going to discuss probability chapter for class 10th. I hope you will enjoy the video. Please subscribe to our channel for regular updates. If you like the video, please share it with your friends and give it a like. Thank you. Let us learn about probability now. Let us toss a coin. When we do that, we get a head or tail as shown here, right? Let us consider an experiment of tossing the same coin for 1000 times. When you do that, let's say we have gotten head 455 times. What this experiment is saying is the likelihood of getting head is 0.455. That is 455 divided by 1000, right? Let us consider another experiment of tossing the coin for 10,000 times. When you do that, let's say that head had turned up 5067 times. This experiment is saying that the likelihood of getting heads is 0.5067. That is 5067 divided by 10,000, right? Let us consider another experiment of tossing the coin for 24,000 times. When you do that, let's say you got head 12,000 times, 12,012 times. It means the likelihood of getting heads is 0.5005. Let's take a note of the result of these experiments. That is, getting heads. What is the likelihood of getting heads? If you observe, these experiments are determining the probability of getting head when you toss a coin, right? The first experiment is getting you the probability of getting a head when you toss a coin. The second experiment is also doing the same. The third experiment is also doing the same. But based on how many times you have conducted that experiment of tossing the coin, based on that, your result is slightly changing, right? Let's understand that about that as we go. But for time being, you can say that whatever probability we have gotten, be it 0.455 or 0.5067 or 0.5005, that probability is called empirical probability or experimental probability, because this number you have obtained by conducting experiment, right? That is why it is called experimental probability or empirical probability. Please note that the probability concepts are applied in the field of science and technology and in our daily life also. For example, it can be used in weather forecasting. It means you can say with what probability today it is going to rain, with what probability tomorrow it is going to rain, or tomorrow it is not going to rain. That kind of questions you can ask. Chance of winning a game. You want to know probability of passing an exam, probability of winning a lottery, failure of a component of a product. For example, when you take the failure of a component of a product, if you know the probability correctly, then it is going to help you define the warranty period for the product of your interest. For example, you are making a product and you want to give certain warranty, right? Be it 6 months, be it 1 year. How do you decide? You can arbitrarily say 5 years and then every product fails. End of it, you will be paying for all that, right? It means it's a loss for you. So you define that warranty period based on the probability of failure of the components of the product you make. That is how it is done. So probability concepts are used in many areas of science and technology and in our daily life also. Please note this point. And probability is a branch of mathematics that deals with describing how likely the events are to happen. For example, if you take tossing the coin, how likely the head is going to happen. If you take chance of winning game, how likely you are going to win the game or how likely you are you are going to lose the game. These kind of things can be answered by probability, which is a branch of mathematics. Please note this point. Let us understand some definitions of probability now. If we toss a coin, we get head or tail. That's what we said just now, right? In the language of probability, tossing the coin is called an experiment. Please note this. Getting head or getting tail are outcomes of the experiment. When you conduct an experiment, you're going to get an outcome, right? That is the result. So in the case of coin tossing experiment, you get head or get tail as the outcome, right? So these are the outcomes of the experiment. Let's say that you want to get head. You and your friend are going for, you're playing, let's say, cricket match, and you are going for toss. Okay, so that you can select the guy who wins the toss is going to select whether their team has to bat first or ball first, right? If that is the case, since you are going for toss, you said that I want to get head. Means if in the toss, if you win, then automatically you are going to select whether to bat or ball based on your interest, right? In this case, you want to get the head. So in the language of probability, getting head is called event because this is the outcome you want to happen. For example, you chose to get tail, then getting tail is called event. Please note this. Okay, getting head is not just fixed. Event is what is based on the outcome you want to happen. It's not just either head or tail. It is about the outcome you want to happen. Please note this point. We have seen three experiments, right? And three experiments have given likelihood of getting heads 0.455, 0.5067, 0.5005, right? Tossing the coin once is called trail. Please take a note of this point. Okay, it means in the case of experiment 1, we have done 1000 trails, and the empirical probability of getting head is 0.455. Please note this. This is empirical probability. Okay. So in the case of experiment 2, the number of trails is 10,000. In the case of experiment 3, number of trails is 24,000 and empirical probability is 0.5005. When you observe all these ratios like 455 by 1000, 5067 by 10,000 and 12,012 divided by 24,000, what you can say is empirical probability of event E is equal to number of trails in which event E happened divided by total number of trails, right? In the case of first experiment, total number of trails is 1000, that is here, and the number of trails in which event head had happened is 455. That's why it is the ratio is number of trails in which the event E happened divided by total number of trails. Please note this formula. This is empirical probability. Another point you want to note here is, as you see from first experiment to third experiment, the number of trails are increasing, right? Here it is 1000, here it is 10,000, here it is 24,000. The observation you make here is as the number of trails increase, the probability is approaching 0.5. This 0.5 is called theoretical probability. You remember this. Whatever you have obtained here using this particular formula are called empirical probabilities, whereas this number 0.5 is called theoretical probability. Let's understand theoretical probability as we go. If we toss a coin, we said that we get a head or a tail, right? If it is a fair coin, the chance of getting head is equal to chance of getting tail, right? If it is not a fair coin, there is a chance that you may be getting more times head or more times tail, something like that. But if it is a fair coin, the chance of getting head is equal to the chance of getting tail, right? It means if you're tossing the coin for once, then chance of getting head is equal to half and the chance of getting tail is equal to half, right? If you are tossing the coin for twice, then chance of getting head is 1 and chance of getting tail is also 1, right? It means outcome of this experiment are equally likely outcomes. Please note this. In this chapter, whatever we do, we deal with problems based on equally likely outcomes. So theoretical probability of event E can now be defined as number of outcomes favorable to event E divided by number of all possible outcomes of the experiment. Let's understand this definition. When you toss a coin, two outcomes are possible, right? Either you may get head or tail, right? So total outcomes possible are head, tail. Let's say that you want to get head. It means the event of your interest is head. In that case, only one outcome leads to head, right? Meaning only this is going to give you head, not the other one, right? It means only one outcome is favorable to, or only one outcome is favorable to the event. I wanted to get head means the favorable outcome is only head. So that is what we have written. So if you observe here, the number of possibilities is 2. Here, the number of possibilities is 1, right? It means probability of getting head, that is denoted using P of H, equal to number of outcomes favorable to event H, that is event head, divided by number of all possible outcomes of the experiment. So we have seen that number of outcomes favorable to event H is 1 and number of all possible outcomes of the experiment is 2, right? That is why this is 1 by 2. The probability of getting head is 1 by 2. Similarly, if you do it for getting the tail, then probability of getting tail is also going to be half, because here you have only this happening, but this doesn't have, right? That's why probability of getting head is going to be equal to probability of getting tail, that is equal to half. Let's understand the concept further with help of another example. Let us now consider a red ball and a black ball as shown here. I'm saying that in this experiment, we are going to randomly select a ball. It means, for example, you are given two balls here, red and black. Let's say they are there in, let's say, some bucket. I don't want to see them and pick. I want to close my eyes and randomly pick one of those balls. If I see and pick, for example, if I am interested, if I like the color red, then there is a chance that I'll be picking the red color ball, right? Or for example, you like black color, then if you see and pick, then there is a chance that you will be picking the black color ball. So it means it is a biased experiment. It's no more a random selection of the. It is biased in the sense you have liking for certain color. Okay, that is why we say that we are going to randomly select the ball. When you randomly select, what happens is chance of getting red ball is equal to chance of getting black color ball, right? It means the outcomes of this particular experiment are going to be equally likely, meaning picking the red ball is equally likely to the picking of the red ball, sorry, black color ball, right? For this experiment also, if you see, two outcomes are possible. One is either picking this red color ball, or that is denoted using R, or picking the black color ball, right? Let's say that you want to select red color ball. It means event is selecting the red color ball, right? So now, if you observe, there is only one option for picking the red color ball, right? This one. So only one outcome leads to the event. That's why I say only one outcome is favorable. That is denoted using R in. Okay. Here, if you see this particular one, R comma B is called the outcomes possible, and here this is outcomes favorable. So probability of selecting red color ball is now going to be the number of outcomes favorable to event R divided by number of all possible outcomes of the experiment. That is equal to half, right? Let us try to understand this further with help of another problem. Let us consider a pair of red balls, meaning I'll be having two red color balls and a black ball. As usual, I'm putting them in a bucket and making a random selection. When I make a random selection, now I can pick this color ball, this particular ball, or I can pick this particular ball, or I can pick this ball, right? It means chance of picking each ball is same, right? Hence, I can say that outcomes of this experiment are also equally likely, right? Though there is two number of balls in of red color and one ball of black color, the chance of picking a ball is same, whether it is red or black doesn't matter because selection is random, right? But the probability may differ. That's what we'll try to understand as we go. For this experiment, three outcomes are possible. One is picking red color ball 1, other is picking red color ball 2, and the other one is picking the black color ball, right? Let's say that I want to select red color ball. So selecting the red ball is going to be the event of interest, right? So two outcomes are going to lead to the event. Means when I pick this particular red color ball, that leads to event red. And when I pick this red ball, that also leads to event red, right? It means two outcomes are favorable. That is R1, red color ball 1, 2, that is red color ball 2, right? Now, the probability of selecting red ball is going to be number of outcomes favorable to event R, that is 2, as you see, and divided by the number of all possible outcomes, that is 3, see here, right? Let's say that you want to select black color ball. So now the selecting the black color ball is the event, right? So only one outcome is favorable because I can only pick this black color. There is no more black color balls in the bucket, right? So favorable outcomes is 1B here. So probability of selecting black color ball is going to be number of outcomes favorable to event B, that is 1, divided by number of all possible outcomes of the experiment, that is 3. So probability of selecting black ball is 1 by 3, right? Let us solve some problems based on this concept. Find the probability of getting a head when a coin is tossed 1. Also find the probability of getting a tail. The experiment here is tossing the coin once. Please note this, tossing the coin once. The possible outcomes are head and tail, right? It means the number of possible outcomes is 2. Here, for the first thing, we want to see the probability of getting head, right? When a coin is tossed. So for that, the event is going to be getting head. That is only 1, right? The number of favorable outcomes here is 1. We know that probability of event E is defined as the number of outcomes favorable to event E divided by number of all possible outcomes of the experiment. As you see here, the number of outcomes favorable to event E is 1, that is H or head, and the number of all possible outcomes of the experiment is H comma T, that is equal to 2, right? So we have seen number of favorable outcomes to getting head is 1 and all possible outcomes is 2. That's why probability of getting head is 1 by 2. Now I say that, probability of getting tail, that is second part of the question, right? That event, sorry, that probability we have to know. For that I'm saying getting tail is event F. That is just T, right? So number of favorable outcomes to get tail is 1 and number of all possible outcomes is 2, right? We have seen that. So probability of getting tail is going to be half. So this is what we are asked to find. Let's take a look at next problem. A bag contains a red ball, a blue ball and an yellow ball. All these balls being of the same size, Manasa takes out a ball from the bag without looking into it. You see, when I say she's not looking into it, and second thing is balls being of the same size, it means the selection is completely random. If balls are of different size, there is a chance that you may pick the bigger ball. So it means your selection is biased. But when I say that the balls being of same size, I'm saying that there is no bias. And second thing is, she's picking the ball without looking into the bag. It means it is a completely a random selection. So the question is, what is the probability that she takes a yellow ball, a red ball, and a blue ball? Now let's first answer what is the probability that she takes a yellow ball. So experiment here is selecting a ball randomly. Hence, I can say that all the outcomes are equally likely, right? So possible outcomes are going to be either you may be picking red color ball, blue color ball, or yellow color ball. It means the number of possible outcomes is 3, right? That is R comma B comma Y. So probability of event E, we know it is defined as number of outcomes favorable to event E divided by number of all possible outcomes of the experiment, right? So for this particular case of finding the probability of picking the yellow color ball, event Y is getting the yellow color ball, right? So the event or the outcomes favorable are just yellow, Y, right? So when you see here, the number of favorable outcomes is 3, right? Sorry, number of favorable outcomes is 1, that is just Y. Whereas number of all possible outcomes is 3 because you have R, B, Y, right? One red color ball, one blue color ball, and one yellow color ball are there in the bag. That is why the number of all possible outcomes is 3. So probability of picking the yellow color ball is 1 by 3, right? Now let's go to the second thing, that is probability of selecting red color ball. Prior to that, you understand this particular notation. Here, RBY, when I write in curly braces, what I mean is this is the sample space. Okay. When I write just Y here, that is corresponding to an event that is named as Y, right? This is called event space. So now the alternate definition for probability can be written as given here. That is number of outcomes in event space divided by number of outcomes in sample space. You see here in sample space, we have 3 outcomes possible, right? In event space, 1 outcome possible. This is favorable outcome anyway. But when you have alternate definition, you can simply say that number of outcomes in event space divided by number of outcomes in sample space. So it is fairly simple to calculate probability when you use this formula, but this is not mentioned in your textbook, so don't worry much. Let's now find the probability of getting the red color ball. Event R is now called, getting the red color ball is called event R. So it has only one outcome possible, that is R. So I can say that number of favorable outcomes is 1. We have already seen number of all possible outcomes is 3, right? So probability of getting red color ball is 1 by 3. Now let's go to the third part of the problem, probability of getting blue color ball. Now I am saying getting blue color ball is event B. So number of outcomes possible is just B, means 1, right? So probability of getting blue color ball is going to be 1 by 3 because number of all possible outcomes of the experiment is 3. That goes as denominator, and number of favorable outcomes equal to 1, that goes as the numerator. I hope you understood the problem. Let's go to the next problem. Suppose we throw a die once. What is the probability of getting a number greater than 4? The second part of the question is, what is the probability of getting a number less than or equal to 4? Let's focus on the first part of the question. Possible outcomes of throwing a dice is what? When you throw a dice, you will get either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, right? That is what is written here. It is in set notation we have written like this. This is called sample space, right? Meaning the number of all possible outcomes is 6, right? Now, what is the probability of getting a number greater than 4? You observe the numbers greater than 4 are 5 and 6, right? So when I say event E is getting a number greater than 4, the event space is going to have 5 and 6. And then I can say that number of favorable outcomes is 2. One is 5 and other is 6, right? So probability of getting a number greater than 4 is now going to be 2 divided by 6, that is equal to 1 by 3, right? 2 is coming from here and 6 is coming from. Let's go to the next part of the question, that is, what is the probability of getting a number less than or equal to 4? So in this case, I am calling this as event F. Getting a number less than or equal to 4 is called event F. Less than or equal to 4, when you say, that is going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So event space is going to have these 4 numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can say that the number of favorable outcomes for this event F is 4, right? Is 1, 2. So probability is going to be 4 by 6, that is equal to 2 by 3. So now I can say that probability of getting a number less than or equal to 4 is 2 by 3, right? Let us learn about elementary events now. We have seen tossing the coin once, that is an experiment, right? This is problem number 1. The possible outcomes are head and tail, right? It means the sample space has got H and T, 2 outcomes in the sample space, right? Let's say getting head is the event. It means the event space will have only H. So only one entry in the event space or one element in the event space. The number of outcomes favorable for this event E or the number of outcomes in the event space is 1. Please note this definition for the elementary event. It says that An event having only one outcome in an experiment is called an elementary event. Please note this. An event having only one outcome in an experiment is called an elementary event. So as per that definition, getting a head when you toss a coin is going to be elementary event because the number of outcomes favorable is just one, right? Similarly, getting a tail when you toss a coin is also an elementary event, right? In another experiment, we have seen selecting a ball randomly, right? That is problem number 2. So possible outcomes given are picking the red color ball, picking the blue color ball, and picking the yellow color ball, right? It means the sample space will have R, B, and Y. So the number of elements in the sample space is 3, or the number of outcomes in the sample space is 3, right? Let's say that getting red color ball is the event R. So that event space will have only one entry, that is R, right? Since the number of outcomes favorable for this particular event is only one, you say that selecting the red color ball is an elementary event. Please note this. Let's see the experiment on throw of a dice. We have seen the possible outcomes are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? The sample space is of size 6, or the number of outcomes in the sample space is 6. But we don't really care about that when you are defining the elementary event, right? Let me say that getting a number greater than 4 is the event. Okay, when you see the event space has got two numbers, that is 5 and 6, right? So the number of outcomes favorable are 2. Or in other words, you can say that the number of outcomes in event space is 2, right? For that reason, this particular event is not an elementary event. Event E has more than one outcome favorable. That is why it is not an elementary event. I hope you understood the concept of elementary events. Let's now learn about mutually exclusive events. If we toss a coin, we get a head or a tail, but not the both, right? If we select a student from a high school, the student belongs to one of the classes, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, or 10th, right? But not from two or more classes. When you select one person, he can be a student of 6th class, he can be student of 7th class, or 8th class, 9th class, or 10th class, but he cannot be a student of two classes, right? If we select a ball from a collection of black and red color balls, then the selected ball will be only either red or black in color, right? When you observe all these three, what you could sense is occurrence of an event is preventing the occurrence of other event. It means if head occurs when you toss a coin, the tail is not going to occur. When you pick a student or when you select a student from 6th class, other classes are not occurring, right? Similarly, when you select a red color ball, black color ball is not occurring, right? If the occurrence of an event prevents the occurrence of other events, then the events are called mutually exclusive events. It means all these problems, what we have seen, tossing the coin, in that case, occurrence of head and occurrence of tail are mutually exclusive events. In the case of selecting student from high school, you know, event 6th, that is selecting the student from class 6th, if it occurs, selection of student from the class 7th is not occurring. Selection of student from class 8th is not occurring. Selection of student from 9th class is not occurring. Selection of student from 10th class is not occurring. Only that occurred is selection of student from 6th class. right? When this happened, selection of student from 6th class happened, rest, it is preventing occurrence of other events, right? Similarly, for the other case, selection of black color ball or red color ball. Now, if one event occurs, the other event is not occurring, right? That is why all these problems are having mutually exclusive events. We can say that. And another point you may like to note is when you have two elementary events of an experiment, they are mutually exclusive. We said that getting a head and getting a tail, both are elementary events, right? Only one favorable outcome is possible for a given experiment. That is why those are elementary events. And when you have two elementary events of an experiment, they are automatically mutually exclusive. I hope you got the concept of mutually exclusive events. Let's now learn about complementary events. In the case of experiment of tossing the coin once, probability of getting head is half. We have seen that. And probability of getting tail is also half. It means probability of getting head plus probability of getting tail equal to half plus half, that is equal to 1. I'm writing it as P of H plus P of T equal to 1, right? In the case of second experiment, selecting a ball randomly, we have seen that P of getting red color ball is 1 by 3, P of B is also 1 by 3, and P of Y is also 1 by 3, right? Their sum is equal to 1. The other experiment, throw of a dice, we have seen, right? In that case, event E is defined as getting a number greater than 4, right? So we have seen probability of getting E is 2 by 6, that is equal to 1 by 3, right? And we have seen event F, that is getting a number less than or equal to 4. So probability of F is defined as 2 by 3, right? When you take sum of these two, P of E plus P of F equal to 1. When I look at all these, what I can say is probability of occurrence of event E plus probability of occurrence of not occurrence of event E equal to 1. Okay. This is probability of occurrence of head, and this one is probability of not occurrence of head. When you have tail, it means it is talking about probability of not occurrence of head, right? Same is true here. If I'm talking about probability of occurrence of red color ball, at the same time, these two are going to be probability of occurrence of, sorry, not occurrence of red color ball, right? These two put together, they say that probability of not occurrence of red color ball, right? When I say here, probability of getting a number greater than 4, I'm saying that this one is probability of getting a number, not getting a number greater than 4, right? That is the reason we can now say that probability of occurrence of event E plus probability of not occurrence of event E equal to 1. So I can write it as P of E plus P of not E equal to 1, right? Symbolically, it is represented as P of E plus P of E bar equal to 1. Here the over bar uh, on E is saying it is not E. We read it as not E. This one we read it as not E. So P of E plus P of not E equal to 1. So event E and event not E are called complementary events. Please note this point. When you have P of E plus P of not E equal to 1, event E and event not E are called the complementary events. Please note this. So in this particular case, I can write P of H plus P of T equal to 1, right? That is what we have written. That can be also written as P of H plus P of not H equal to 1. In this case, I can write these two together as P of not R. So P of R plus P of not R equal to 1, right? So you understood the definition of complementary events. Now let's learn about impossible and certain events. Let's recall the experiment of throw of a dice. We have seen that possible outcomes are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? So number of all possible outcomes is 6. Suppose I am saying that getting a number greater than 6 as event E. Is it possible? Now I have a die which has got only numbers ranging from 1 to 6, right? Whereas we want to get probability of getting a number greater than 6. The event space is empty here, right? Means the number of favorable outcomes here is 0. Hence the probability is going to be 0 by 6, that is equal to 0, right? The definition of impossible events is given as if probability of an event to occur is 0, then that event is called impossible event. Or in other words, we can say that probability of an event that is impossible to occur is 0, right? I hope you understood what does it mean by impossible event, right? So probability of occurrence of impossible event is 0. When you get probability 0, it means it is going to be an impossible event. So getting a number greater than 6 is an impossible event. Getting a number greater than 7 is also an impossible event for this particular die experiment, right? Our probability of getting a number that is equal to 0 also an impossible event because 0 is also not there on any side of the die. I hope you understood the concept of impossible events. Now let's learn about certain events. I'm saying getting 6 or a number less than 6 is event E. So when I throw a die, what I'm going to get is any of these numbers ranging from 1 to 6, right? So the event space for this particular event, getting number 6, that is here, and a number less than 6, those are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So the event space has got total 6. So it means total 6 entries. It means the number of favorable outcomes is 6, right? So probability is going to be 6 by 6, that is equal to 1. If probability of an event that is sure to occur, sorry, probability of an event that is sure to occur is 1. In other words, if probability of an event is 1, then that event is called a sure to occur event or a certain event. So getting 6 or a number less than 6 when you throw a dice is a sure event or a certain event. Please note this. Let us learn about deck of playing cards. As you see here, we can arrange the deck of playing cards in this fashion. Here you have letter A. This particular card is called ace. Then you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And this is called J. It is called jack. This is Q. This is called queen. And this is K. This is called king. Right? So when you count, you have total 13 number of cards in this row. Right? Same is true. Here also we have 13 cards. Here also we have 13 cards. This particular row also has got 13 cards, right? The first row, in the first row, if you observe this particular symbol, this symbol is called clubs. So all the cards of clubs are in black and total club cards are 13. Please note this. This particular symbol in black is called spades. So you have total 13 cards of spades type, right? This particular symbol is called hearts, that is in red. This particular row has got 13 cards. It means total hearts is 13, meaning total number of cards with heart symbol are 13 in a given deck of playing cards. So similarly, you have total 13 diamonds, meaning total cards that have got diamond symbol in red color are 13. So the total number of cards in the given playing cards deck are 4 times 13, that is equal to 52. Please note this. Let's solve a problem based on this concept. One card is drawn from a well-shuffled deck of 52 cards. Calculate the probability that the card will be an ace and find the probability that the card will not be an ace. Okay. The point here we have to make note is a well-shuffled deck of 52. It means the card you pick is going to be a random selection. Okay. When you shuffle them uh, in a proper way, the cards are going to be arranged randomly. When you pick a card, the card you are going to get is a random selection. And second thing is, all the cards have got equally likely possibility to picked up, right? It means all the outcomes are equally likely. With that in mind, let's try to solve this problem. So we have seen the arrangement of the cards earlier. We want to pick the card which is an ace, right? And we know the probability of event E is defined as number of outcomes favorable to event E divided by number of all possible outcomes of the experiment, right? So if you see, for the first part of the problem, getting an ace is going to be the event, right? And as you see here, we have got 4 cards of ace. It means the favorable outcomes is 4 for this particular event, right? And we know all possible outcomes is 52 because we have 52 cards. So the sample space is going to have 52 different cards. That's why all possible outcomes is 52. When it comes to event space, you have got only these 4 ace cards, right? That's why favorable outcomes is 4. Hence, the probability of selecting a card which is an ace is 4 by 56, that is equal to 1 by 13, right? So probability of getting an ace is 1 by 13. Now, if you go and see the second part of the problem, not be an ace, right? It means P of not E is what we want to find, right? Since P of E is probability of getting an ace, P of not E is going to be probability of not getting an ace. So we know P of E plus P of not E equal to 1. When you rearrange it, you can write P of not E equal to 1 minus P of E. Let's substitute 1 by 13 for P of E and simplify such that P of not E is going to be 12 by 13, right? It means probability of not getting an ace is 12 by 13, right? Let's solve another problem. Sangeeta and Reshma play a tennis match. It is known that the probability of Sangeeta winning the match is 0.6. What is the probability of Reshma winning the match? We have to find. Here, I'm calling Sangeeta winning the match as event S. It means P of S is 0.62, right? If Sangeeta wins the match, Reshma is going to lose. If Sangeeta loses the match, Reshma is going to win, right? It means I can say that probability of Sangeeta losing the match equal to probability of Reshma winning the match, right? P of R is something we want to find, probability of Reshma winning the match. It is essentially mean that we are going to find the probability of Sangeeta losing the match, right? So I can write Sangeeta losing the match as P of not S, right? That is equal to P of R. So P of S is 0.62. We have to find P of not S. That is equal to P of R, right? We know P of S plus P of not S can be written as 1. So when you rearrange, P of not S is going to be 0.38, right? That is equal to P of R. It means probability of Reshma winning the match is 0.38. I hope you understood the problem. Let's go to the next problem. Sharada and Hamida are friends. What is the probability that both will have different birthdays? And what is the probability that both will have the same birthday, ignoring a leap year? We said that ignore the leap year. It means the year we are talking about will have only 365 days, right? So number of all possible outcomes is going to be 365, right? So for example, Sarada can have a birthday on Jan 1st, Jan 2nd, Jan 3rd, anything up to December 31st, right? It means all possible outcomes is 360. Same is true with Hamida, right? She can have birthday on any of these days. So we know that probability of event E is number of outcomes favorable divided by number of all possible outcomes, right? We have seen number of all possible outcomes is 365. So to get the number of outcomes favorable to event E, we have to understand the problem a bit better. We said that Sarada's birthday can be any day of the year, right? Now, I'm defining event E as Amida having birthday different from Sarada's. This is the first question, right? We want to have probability of both will have different birthday. For that, what I'm saying is, to begin with, I'm defining the event as Hamida having birthday different from Sharda's. Okay. Since Sharda will be having birthday on one of the days, Hamida can have birthday on remaining 364 days, any of the day of 364 days, right? It means favorable outcomes for this particular event to happen, event E to happen. The favorable outcomes is going to be 364, right? 365 days minus the day on which Sharda is having her birthday. Let's say if Sharda is having her birthday on Jan 1st, then remaining 364 days is possible for Amida to have her birthday, so that both will have different birthdays. I hope you got the point. Now favorable outcomes is 364 and all possible outcomes is 365. It means probability of Hamida having different birthday from Sharada's birthday is 364 by 360. Now let's go to the second problem. So what is the probability that both will have the same birthday? Can I say that to get this answer, can I make use of this particular statement where having same birthday equal to not having different birthday, right? Having same birthday means not having different birthday. If this statement is true, then we can make use of P of E plus P of not E equal to 1 equation, right? So P of E is known, that is 364 by 365. And when you substitute that, you are going to get P of not E equal to 1 by 360. This is the answer we are looking for part 2 of the problem. So probability of having same birthday is 1 by 360, right? Let's take a look at next problem. A box contains 3 blue, 2 white, and 4 red marbles. If a marble is drawn at random from the box, what is the probability that it will be white, it will be blue, will be red? So total number of marbles in the box are 3 plus 2 plus 4, right? That is equal to 9. It means the number of outcomes possible is 9. Or otherwise, the sample space, the number of outcomes in the sample space is 9, right? Now I'm saying to solve this particular thing, probability that the marble will be white, I say that event W is drawing a white marble. So number of white marbles here is given 2, right? It means favorable outcomes for event W is going to be 2. Or the event space will be having 2 Ws. That's why favorable outcomes for event W is 2, right? And we know probability of event E is number of outcomes favorable divided by number of all possible outcomes. As per that, probability of drawing white ball P of W is going to be 2 by 9, right? Now let's go to the second part of the problem, that is probability of picking the blue color marble. So I'm saying drawing the blue color marble is event B. So favorable outcomes for event B is going to be 3 because you have 3 number of balls, blue color marbles, right? So probability of drawing blue color ball is going to be 3 by 9, that is equal to 1 by 3, right? Now let's go to the third part of the question. Probability that it will be a red color marble. As you see here, if I say that event R is drawing the red color marble, I have 4 red color marbles, right? It means favorable outcomes for event R is 4. Hence, I can say that probability of drawing red color ball P of R is 4 by 9. I hope you understood the problem. Let us take a look at another problem, that is problem number 8. Harpreet tosses 2 different coins simultaneously. Say one is 1 rupee coin and other is 2 rupees coin. What is the probability that she gets at least one head? The first coin, when you toss, let's say it gives you head or tail, right? So let's say that for the first coin, we have got heads, and we want to see what happens to the second coin. Second coin, when you toss, it can get head or tail, right? In the case of first coin getting tail, there is a possibility that the second coin can get head or tail, right? If you observe this, what you can say is, I can get 2 heads or head and tail, tail and head, tail and tail. These are the 4 combinations, 4 pairs of outcomes. Hence, we can say that number of all possible outcomes is 4. 2, 3, 4, right? First coin giving head and second coin giving head. First coin giving head and second coin giving, like that, right? So 4 possible outcomes are there. But when you observe, the question asked is, what is the probability that she gets at least one head, right? Let me define event E as getting at least one head. As you see here I am getting 2 heads, means at least one head is there already. Here I am getting at least one head. Here I am getting at least one head, whereas here I am not getting, right? It means the favorable outcomes are these 3. So probability of getting at least one head is going to be 3 by 4. Favorable outcomes, the number of favorable outcomes, that is equal to 3 divided by number of all possible outcomes, that is equal to 4, right? So probability of getting at least one head is 3 by 4. Let's go to the next problem. A missing helicopter is reported to have crashed somewhere in the rectangular region as shown in the figure. This particular figure is a rectangular region. What is the probability that it crashed inside the lake shown in the figure? You see here, this is the lake, right? This is also a rectangular region, right? Lake is also a rectangle, and the whole region is also a rectangle. So the point we have to note here is helicopter is equally likely to crash anywhere in the region. Means it can crash in the forest zone or it can crash in the lake zone, right? So probability of crashing in lake is proportional to area of lake. Please note this. This is important because the area of forest region is much bigger than area of the lake region. Means probability of crashing in the lake has to be smaller compared to probability of crashing in the forest region, right? It means probability of crashing in lake is proportional to area of the lake. Okay, so that is defined as area of the lake divided by area of the whole region. For example, if lake is not there in the figure, given figure, then automatically probability of crashing in the lake is going to be 0 because area of the lake is going to be 0 in that particular case, right? So please note this formula: probability of crashing in lake, that is P of E, equal to area of the lake divided by area of the whole region. Length of the lake is 9 kilometers minus 6 kilometers. That is what is your length of the lake, right? And the width of the lake is 4.5 kilometers minus 2 kilometers. That is your, right? This is 2.5. This is 3. So area of lake is 3 times 2.5, that is 7.5 meters square. Sorry, kilometers square it has. And area of the whole region is 9 times 4.5, that is again 40.5 kilometers square, right? So probability of crashing in the lake is going to be 7.5 divided by 40.5. That can be written as 0.1852. So probability of crashing in lake is 0.1852. Let's take a look at another problem. Two dice are thrown at the same time. Write down all the possible outcomes. What is the probability that the sum of the two numbers appearing on top of the dice is 8, 13, less than or equal to 12? These three sub problems are, right? So when you throw two dice at the same time, dice 1 can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, any of this as the outcome, right? Dice 2 can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, any of these, right? It means the outcome can be 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 5, 1, 6. Our outcome can be 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, 2, 5, 2, 6. Or the outcome can be 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 3, 5, 3, 6. Like that, when you write all these outcomes, what you will have is total possible outcomes is 6 times 6, that is 36. When you count all these numbers written here in this table, then you are going to all these pairs. When you count them, you have total 36 pairs, right? It means all possible outcomes is going to be 36. Now, the first problem asked is probability of sum of two numbers is 8. Now, what is that probability you want to find? So when you look at this table, what we have written just now, only for the numbers written here, 2, 6, their sum is 8, 3, 5, 8, 4 plus 4, 8, 5 plus 3, 8, 6 plus 2, 8, right? So total we have 5 possible or 5 favorable outcomes, right? So favorable outcomes is 5. Hence, the probability of sum of two numbers is 8 is going to be 5 divided by 36. Please note this. 5 is favorable outcomes and 36 is all possible outcomes, right? Let's go to the second part. What is the probability that the sum is going to be 13? We have to find this. But when you look at the table, you can say that highest sum is possible. Highest sum possible is 12. That is for 6 plus 6, right? It means you cannot get sum equal to 13. Hence, the number of favorable outcomes for this particular event is going to be 0. It means probability is going to be 0. It's when probability is 0, we learned that that is an impossible event, right? Please note this. Probability of sum of two numbers going to be 13 is 0, hence it is an impossible event. Let's go to the part 3, that is less than or equal to 12, right? When you observe this, what you can say is when you sum 1 and 1, you get 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. 1 plus 3 is 4. Like that, when you sum all that, all are less than 12 except for this. For 6 plus 6, it is 12. For rest of the things, it is less than 12. So when you count total outcomes favorable for less than or equal to 12, you have 36 favorable outcomes. It means the probability of sum less than or equal to 12 is 36 by 36, that is equal to 1, right? When you have probability 1, it means it is a certain event, right? Sum less than or equal to 12, when you throw two dice at the same time, is going to be 1, and that event is called a sure event or a certain event. I hope you understand the concept. I hope you like the video. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Learn to Score. Thank you.